The KZN Police Commissioner, a prominent tenderpreneur and underworld criminal king, an information peddler who has access to information beyond senior police officials, and a deputy national police commissioner who subverts any investigation that's taken by his subordinate, General Mkwanazi. All of this is happening under the purview of Senzo Mchunu, Minister of Police, under whom serve two direct subordinates, national and deputy national police commissioners, who either ignore or seem to not acknowledge the accusations made by Nhlanhla Mkwanazi.
So explosive allegations of political interference, criminal syndicates and sabotage of key investigations.
The revelations made by KwaZulu-Natal's Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkwanazi.
Key to these allegations is that a criminal enterprise has infiltrated the entire criminal justice system.
If Mkwanazi's claims turn out to be true and the evidence he claims to have turns out to be legit, one of the historic moments in modern South Africa, because what that would probably mean is the exposing and uncovering of what is essentially a mafia state in the country.
A gentleman sent me a message. Mr. Brown sent me a WhatsApp message. And he said on the message, I can show you the message because I have it with me. It's a WhatsApp that came to me. I didn't ask for it. An internal attempt to discredit you through a defeating the end case. I did not respond until the following day when I saw the message on the 1st of October. I responded, what defeating case are you referring to? And who is behind it? That's a question I asked him. And from there, same time, he sends me a KZN factual report. A factual report which is a report that, assuming, was drafted by the commander that was on the crime scene on the eve of that attempt arrest of that prison official. And this was directed to the Provincial Commission, which I never received. This factual report was directed to the Provincial Commissioner, and this very same factual report is not signed at the bottom.
Well, I think yesterday's press briefing, Aldrin, was truly seismic, and what it represents is incredibly impactful. What we saw was a provincial police commissioner essentially break rank and name names and drop the receipts, as we say, calling into question the probity of not only the police minister, Senzo Mchunu, but also other high-ranking individuals in the South African policing landscape. And this is incredibly significant because it shows the extent to which the uppermost ranks of the police are factionalized, and the war for control and power is now playing out in full view. You know, we've been writing about this for several months, and we're going to see some significant shifts in the policing landscape, especially in the leadership structure. And this is probably the first stanza of that, but it certainly puts us on the world stage, and not for something we want to be there for.
And so it is that as a country, we are once again at the precipice of another historic unveiling of corruption, the levels of which I don't think we have seen, or perhaps we shall see for quite some time, if the allegations from Mkwanazi himself are revealed to be true. I suppose amongst many South Africans, there's always been a suspicion about SAPS itself. How far does corruption go? Does it extend beyond the occasional bribe that you have to pay at a traffic stop or a police blockade on the freeway? I suppose now we know that not only is corruption clearly present in the South African police force, but it is also a very fractured institution that's being torn apart by different interests, actors, and divisions. This goes all the way to the very top, with the police minister, Senzo Mchunu, basically being cited as playing for the enemy. Now, if we are to believe those things that Mkwanazi has clearly said with quite bold confidence, I mean, he had his chest out, I would say. And the problem started back when Senzo Mchunu issued this official letter from his ministerial office asking for the disbandment of the KZN Political Killings Task Team. What was interesting to note is that he also wanted to address the matter of security and customs at the port. That in itself could be very telling, especially with regard to cartels being at the top of this syndicate that Mkwanazi is making mention of. The last paragraph leaves a lot to be thought about and to digest and divulge. He says, in 2019, a directive was made to the National Commissioner of Police following the Murane Commission report, even though not flowing directly from such that an interministerial task force be established. The key mandate was to stop, investigate and resolve unresolved murders of politicians in the country, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. My observation in this regard is indicated above is that further existence of this team is no longer required, nor is it adding any value to policing in South Africa. I therefore direct that the Political Killings Task Team disestablished immediately. Further, that a preliminary report in this regard be submitted to the Minister by the 20th of January 2025. So he's not wasting time. The final and closing report must be submitted to the Ministry Management Executive Committee meeting late January 2025, the date of which will be communicated as soon as possible.
He's saying what he's saying, and I can tell you that he doesn't know what he's talking about. To start with, the political task team, upon receiving a letter from the National Commissioner, not from the Minister. It is the National Commissioner, Fani Masemola, who wrote me a letter telling me what he wants done and by when.
These allegations have come from a man who has consistently sought to subvert Mkwanazi's investigations and intentions. Lieutenant General Sibiya seems to have taken instructions either directly from the Minister of Police or from the National Commissioner himself to seize over 126 dockets, which are now in his private possession in his office, locked away in a vault. Some should say that this disagreement or this discord between intelligence services and the police stemmed from Jacob Zuma's days, when he sought to aggregate, coerce and coalesce every single intelligence arm in the country for his own gain and for his own ends. I think it's something that's been on the mind of most South Africans as we've been getting snippets of this larger picture that Mkwanazi painted so vividly on Sunday. We have been getting clippings of international drug cartels as having dealings in Cape Town, delivering shipments of cocaine and working with local gang groups. We have been apprised of the presence of Mexicans in Limpopo. Other examples include the Bulgarians working in tandem with the Colombians and using our local number gangs as transit facilitators for said products. So Mkwanazi's claims are not without any sort of base. And even as dramatic as it may sound, even for those who think he might be posturing, these claims that he is making do not deserve to be just turned away with a blind eye. We need to realize some very hard truths about this country. South Africa, for all intensive purposes, sits dead center in the globe. It is a vital choke point for global maritime. International criminal groups probably see South Africa as the jewel of their operations because it has the mix of all these things that they probably enjoy so much. Our infrastructure, as much as we complain about it, is comparatively much better than most other parts of the world. Whether you're talking about roads, trade routes, telecoms, it's great. But at the same time, we have a very weak government, a government that's susceptible to corruption, a government that has facilitated and written fantastic laws on paper but does not enforce them. So of course, they're probably looking at our officials and just wondering how much do they have to write up the bill or write up the check for so that they can have them in their pocket. All of these things are very, very plausible. In fact, I would go as far as to say that these things have been concretely achieved by these criminal networks, and that is exactly what Mkwanazi is saying. Here we have the Global Organized Crime Index, which looks at our resilience score, monitoring things like government capacity, national policies and laws, judicial system and detection, law enforcement, territorial integrity, anti-money laundering, economic regulatory capacity, victim and witness support, prevention, and many other variables. Our criminality score, which seems to be much higher, includes things like human trafficking, smuggling, extortion and protection racketeering, arms trafficking, trade in counterfeit goods, illicit trade, crimes in the flora and fauna area, as well as organized crime in the drug trade. All of this is summed up at the end of the report detailing how South Africa is populated by quasi-criminal style networks, a weakened criminal justice and security system which is easily corruptible by criminals with enough in their pocket, as well as drugs, with the heroin trade specifically taking prominence in recent years. All of this adds up to a criminality score of 1.8 out of 10, which perhaps to some is a little bit conservative. And when you consider us as 7th out of 193 countries for criminality, it makes little sense as to why Senzo Mchunu would call for the banment of the political killings task team in KZN. Just take a look at the number of killings from 2000 to 2022, where a significant number of those killings stem from political arenas and reasons for political advancement. So working at the Durban docks, it dawned on me that there were some things that I witnessed there during my time working for a particular event, a SARS auction, a repossession auction. There were things I saw that only made sense after I picked up a particular book about the global cocaine trade by the now famed author, or more infamous author, Roberto Saviano, about 000. And it's on page 334 that he mentions us as a country. He says, South Africa is white, and white are her coasts, white are her ports where ships from Latin America arrive. White are the customs of this country. As its wealth has increased, so has its consumption of cocaine. Mauritania is white. White are the dusty runways where small planes land jammed full of cocaine. It is the zipper between the Atlantic Ocean and the Maghreb. Angola is white because its ties with Brazil are white. Former Portuguese colonies that become brothers through transoceanic coke shipments. Africa is white. There are some very hard truths we need to come to terms with. And if anyone wants to vet this author, you can do so by Googling him. I know for a fact he has to change his place of residence as well as his security detail every 3 months based on what he knows and is written about criminal organizations, including the Italian Camorra. And so it is thus. We have to realize that this network consists of corrupt intelligence officials, underworld tenderpreneur kings, a broken police system, information peddlers, all the while being controlled by an international syndicate, the likes of which we still have yet to piece together, whether it's a bunch of cartels working together or anyone else. They could be working in tandem for all we know. One thing is clear, however. The same drug cartels that Mkwanazi makes mention of have made their way here with quite an impact. Take the heroin trade along the east coast of Africa, for example. South Africa has seen an exponential increase in both the usage as well as the treatment cases for heroin-related substances over the last 15 years. I could have included a lot more resources and links to possible linkages with international and organized crime, but I'm going to list the rest of those resources below for some of you who've actually asked me in previous videos to list these resources. So happy reading. I do not want this video to be something that compounds the negative outlook of our country, but it is quite dire. Another thing I'd like to mention is the fact that corruption and malfeasance in South Africa is not only within our borders, and it's far beyond what I think most of us realize. If this commission of inquiry, another one that Cyril has chosen to go with, but I do understand his reasons and his restrictions within the ANC as having to choose that option. If this new commission of inquiry does find linkages to international cartels, it could blow everything else out the water that we've discovered about South Africa so far, in terms at least of crime, malfeasance, corruption, and all those negative things that so often take the news cycle. However, we can only continue to live in hope, as we are a country that thrives on that. We have no other choice. I'll see you guys in the next one.
91(3) subsection C of the Constitution, which empowers the Constitution to select no more than 2 ministers from outside the National Assembly. Professor Kachalya will be retiring from his current position at the University of Witwatersrand at the end of July this year. I will, in the interim, appoint an acting minister from within cabinet until Professor Kachalya takes up his post